so excited.
Time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
Welcome to Two Guys and a Goalie. Right now, guy and goalie. Matt Iwanyk, Joaquin Gage with you here as we try to get Cass connected as well. I can't see his camera, so disconnected. Hopefully, we'll get him reconnected and he can jump on with us here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. On EdmontonSportsTalk.com, tune in iHeartRadio as well as for those watching on YouTube. Gager, was the rest of the morning? How was that teen burger for you this morning? As it's burgers to beat MS for A&W, $2 from every teen burger going to MS for the 16th year this is happening.
There's nothing quite like having a burger at 9:05 in the morning. So, you get your. It's a hearty breakfast, to say the least, especially with the onions. It doesn't happen that often, but no, I mean, you bite in. It doesn't. I don't think it matters what time of day it is with a team burger. That first bite is delicious. Thanks the girls for coming in and supplying those. Cass, you missed out.
I'm onion guy off, so I took the onions off, and I had to do it in the hangout. Like, it was an awkward moment where I'm having to open up the burger and take the onions. So I don't like onions. I'm not a fan of onions, except I can eat them in onion rings and crispy onions, but I don't like onions on my burgers. Cass, you disagree with that. Close as you came on, you just went, no. Because they taste awful. They taste awful. Just onions in general. They just taste awful.
But you eat onion rings.
It's because of the crispiness. It's the batter. It's deep fried. So I don't taste it as much. I don't want it on my pizza. I don't want it on my food. I'm a Ukrainian. I don't want them touching my pierogies. Keep the onions away from me. Oh, I'm hearing Cass, but he's not coming through on the screen. It's coming through the audio, Zach, I don't think. There's no levels for Cass when he on. Is he coming through? Okay, never mind. Sorry, Cass. No, I don't like them on my pierogies. Not at all. No, I don't need them in my pierogies. There's one Ukrainian here, I think. I'm allowed to do what I want. Are you too? Oh, yes. Well, I'm 50% too. Okay. So, yeah.
Side's German, but yeah.
I become Ukrainian.
Apparently I'm muted. No one can still hear me, so.
Oh.
Zach says he fixed it. You're Ukrainian, Gager?
When I eat pierogies, yeah.
We should do a pierogi eating contest at Edmonton Sports Talk.
Oh. It has to have onions, though.
Yeah, they can have onions on them. I'm scraping them off. I'm not eating the onions still with it.
Well, then you can't win.
Of course, no, but you don't need the onions for a pierogi eating contest. Yeah, it's about the actual pierogi. And I apologize to all Ukrainians out there. I know we're not saying the right word, but we're trying to appeal to everyone here.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got into that on the Hangout a little bit today. But no, you don't. No, you don't need the onions for this. If you're doing a pierogi eating contest, you do not. No, the onions do not count.
If there's the registry, can we get Iwanyk's Ukrainian card revoked for a little bit? Because I don't. There's little babas. Is it babas? That's the name. The little babas are going nuts in the kitchen right now, making these things, just shaking their head. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. What type of pierogies do you like then, Maddie? Like, is it just the cheese filled? What?
Well, it's the potato, it's cheese. I love the sauerkraut one. Is I think I've grown up into being my favorite one of them all. I do like we do the dessert one where we put blueberries in it instead. You put a little bit of sugar on that. It's a delight. So I like it's. I just don't need the onions. Just keep the onions away from it. It doesn't need onions.
Here's Here's a real question. Are you a guy that you cook them and then you fry them afterwards, like throw them in a pan to crisp them, or do you just go straight out of the pot?
You fry leftovers. You eat out of the pot for the first time.
Thank you. Okay, at least I appreciate that, at least. Okay.
Yes. No,
Just
no.
checking.
You don't do the double cook on the first time. You don't boil them and then throw them in the pan and eat them. No. You boil them, you eat them boiled, and then when you have leftovers, you throw those in the pan and you fry them up to warm them up.
All right. How do you
Gage,
do it,
have you ever
Cass?
done that?
You just my brother-in-law, we had pierogi making parties where we would go over there and make our own. And we would boil them, but then we'd have the onions and the bacon, and then we'd put the onions, bacon, butter all together, mix it up, and then toss all that in with the pierogies coming out of the pot, and then go to town.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you do. And then you have a little sour cream if you need on the side. That a little salt and pepper. If you're feeling like mixing up a little bit, you can have a little side dish of some white vinegar, which you can kind of do a little dip in white vinegar. Yeah. Should try it.
That sounds amazing. Because, okay, like when it comes to French
fantastic.
fries, what is the number one condiment to dip French fries in?
I like a garlic aioli would be my like over top of ketchup. I mean, gravy too, you can't really beat. But fresh fries with like a malt vinegar on it is also fantastic. I mean, you don't go wrong with that.
To me, it's the New York fries especially. You go get New York fries, you put malt vinegar on those. It's elite.
Deadly.
It's elite.
Well, it does the same thing, like a little bit of the vinegar with the pierogies, and that actually is an Eastern European thing still. So I guess Ukraine counts as that, where it's like if you have like pelmeni, which are, I don't know if you had pelmeni, but they're kind of like a smaller pierogi type of dumpling, usually with meat inside. But those you just eat straight up with vinegar. And so you kind of do the same thing, like where you can have a little bit, and it just adds a little bit of a bite to them. So yeah, those are fantastic. It's a fantastic way to do it. But yeah, the little malt vinegar on some New York fries, or just fries in general, is always a good way to go. You don't go wrong with it. But yeah, those thick cut, I think you're right, Maddie. Like it's on like thick cut fries, because if thin fries, they get soggy. You don't want to get them soggy with the malt vinegar. You just want a little bit of that acidic bite to them.
I remember my uncle came up when I was a kid. I was playing in the Kibet tournament, the Kamloops International Bantam tournament way back when. And we went to a fast food place, and I remember we got fries. I don't know where we were. And I started putting vinegar on my fries. And my dad's side of the family from the States, he was from Northern California. My Uncle Reg looked at me and he goes, "Vinegar? Boy, you Canadians sure are crazy." It was hilarious. Yeah, but I don't think you'll find Americans that put vinegar on fries.
Yeah, but they eat biscuits and gravy for breakfast, which is weird.
Yeah, but it's not beef gravy. It's not beef gravy. Let's be clear. It's sausage gravy, and there's a huge difference.
Okay, I've never had it, so
have you ever tried it?
No, I haven't.
Right?
I just find it weird because I don't want gravy in the morning. Like I don't want sauce in the morning.
It's not.
But it's not like brown. It's not brown gravy. It's a white gravy. So basically, it's like you cook up a whole bunch of crumbled breakfast sausage, and you load it up with butter and flour and cream, and lots of pepper and some salt, and that's biscuit gravy. Completely different thing than brown gravy. And Maddie, I'm telling you, it is absolutely fantastic. It is fantastic. It's actually quite simple. Like it's not overpowering, but it's horrible for you, and it tastes delicious. It's absolutely fantastic. And you don't drain the sausage after. Like you leave the fat in there. So you leave the fat in the pan. Add more fat with the butter. You can put some onions in there if you want. But yeah, then bunch of flour soaks up that butter, make a little bit of a roux in the pan with the sausage, and then dump a whole bunch of heavy cream in there, maybe some milk, depending on how thick you want it. And boy, oh boy, dump that bad boy all over your biscuits, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's delicious. Delicious, Maddie.
I'll say this, and the next time I'm in the States, if I see it, I'll give it a try. I will give it a try.
Give it a try. You got it. You got
your advice. I will throw this. I'm lucky. I'm very thankful that I could say this today because I have changed. But you guys were mad at me as a Ukrainian for not liking onions. I am also half Italian. Up until about 4 years ago, I did not like tomatoes, which I always felt was like so anti-Italian right there. I now love tomatoes. I enjoy them. I absolutely couldn't stand tomatoes for the longest time. And that was the one where I was like, if somebody needed me to hand in my Italian card, I get it. I get it. But I am good now. I do like my tomatoes. So just throwing that out there.
Jeez. It's amazing.
When you grow up, palate changes.
Yeah.
This is Two Guys and a Goalie presented by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, safety, driving their success. GS Construction. They built a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to be part of the team. Visit gsconstruction.ca, click ready to work, or visit their page at indeed.ca. Matt Iwanyk, Matt Kassian, Joaquin Gage with you here. Apologies that it's lunchtime, that if you're not eating right now, we've probably made you a lot more hungry. But head to A&W for the Beat MS burgers to beat MS is $2 from every teen burger, double teen burger, and Beyond Meat teen burger does go to MS Canada. We are now in that fallout phase of the offer sheets not being matched of Broberg and Holloway and the trade of Cody Ceci. Now the attention turns to the upcoming training camp for the Edmonton Oilers, and the thing that's kind of rumbling out there is PTOs and bringing in defenders to this team. The name right now at the top of the list and the name that's rumbling the most, it is Tyson Barrie. Do you guys think that the Oilers should be PTOing Tyson Barrie and bring him in? Would he fit, do you think, with this top six, bringing him back? Cass, I'll start with you.
Well, just on a PTO, or are we talking signing out of a PTO?
Well, I guess it starts with the PTO, because I don't think you're signing that guy. I don't think you could sign Tyson Barrie right off the bat.
Well, so here's the thing. Is Tyson Barrie who you want on that second pairing right shot D with Darnell Nurse? And my immediate answer is no. Like, he's improved defense on the offensive side of the puck, and to me, it's just like, bring him in the PTO, sure. Doesn't hurt to bring him in a PTO, get another body in camp, another right shot D. That's fine. Create some competition, but I don't see signing him making much or any sense. He's not going to run your power play.
But does he give you the insurance if something happens to Bouchard?
Yeah, he's a 6'7". Like, if you could get him on you're probably not, but if you could get him on like a league minimum deal, okay, sure. But I don't know. He's not the type of guy that you need. And I mean, you created this issue by trading Cody Ceci, but he's not the type of guy that you need.
Yeah, because essentially he has to come in to camp then and be much better than I think what the Oilers have already. Like, he has to, I look at Stetcher, Brown, he has to be like heads and shoulders above those guys, I think, if we're getting to the signing portion. It's league minimum for sure. I do like the fact that a loved player would be coming back into that dressing room, taking another shot at it. But yeah, I don't mind him coming to camp, but again, I don't know, spending that money, if he does sign, I think again, he has to be unbelievable, or else, because I think the Oilers are in a better position just to wait, see what they have first, and make that decision later.
But yeah, like, I don't think Tyson Barrie is going to be a guy that's getting a major contract. This isn't a guy that's going to get $2 million. Like, even if you get him for a mil, 1.25 or something, if it doesn't work during the season, you could always throw him down to the minors and $850 comes off. Like, the Oilers are in that situation right now where they have cap space to play with, and is an extra $500,000 because Barrie hasn't worked out going to be of real consequence. I don't know if you guys have looked at the UFAs right now for defense. Do any of these names excite you in a sense of this would help, fill out the six for the Oilers for this season, or at the very least getting them to training camp if they can get them on a low deal? Tyson Barrie is at the top of the list. They have there's Zaitsev, there's Klingberg, there's Scandella, there's Justin Schultz, there's Alex Goligoski, Kevin Shattenkirk, Travis Dermott. Any of those names jump to mind that you think that the Oilers, if they brought him on a PTO, you'd actually be comfortable with if they signed them for this season to be in the top 6?
I know I said that possibility with Schultz and Barry, but again, no, I don't. Nothing really pops off the page to me there.
Cass?
Yeah, nothing major. Zaitsev might be the only one, maybe. I don't know if I'd say comfortable with, though, but at least he's a guy that's got NHL experience, and it's a right shot. I would love to say Marco Scandella. I love Marco. He's a good buddy. But he's a left shot. And if he was a guy that you had to have come in and step in and move up, like play in your bottom pairing and move up on the left side, then sure, that makes sense. And you could look at that. But left side isn't where they need the help right now. It's not. And he's not a right shot. You need a right shot guy to play in that top 6. So, you wouldn't bring in Marco Scandella anticipating he's going to play in front of Darnell Nurse. He's certainly not playing in front of Matthias Ekholm. Now, if Ekholm got hurt, you could say, okay, he could be someone you could slide in there and hopefully from a defensive standpoint, play a steady defensive game, which is what he can give you. But yeah, none of those guys are really jumping off the page. Again, Zaitsev maybe, just because he's the right shot and he's a veteran guy, but even then, it's not like he's been overly successful. So yeah, no one's really jumping out there, buddy.
So then, I'll start with you, Cass, on this then. Like, how comfortably, if the Oilers ultimately actually don't do anything with this defense, and, you're looking at, until, obviously the trade deadline. They're going to do something on defense. It's going to come throughout the start of the season. But getting this team to February, March, when the trade deadline is, how comfortable with a defensive core that's Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, Kulak, Emberson, and Stetcher, with Brown as the number 7. Is that good enough to keep the Oilers near the top of the Pacific Division and giving them, and fighting for that home playoff throughout the playoffs, and then getting them to at least February, March, where then Jeff Jackson, Stan Bowman could go out and make that addition with this cap space to bringing in that top 4 right-handed defenseman and maybe some other depth guy? Is that good enough for this team going into the season?
Well, I think it gets you by. I don't think that's what you want to head into the playoffs with, but it gets you by. And part of it would depend. I'm going to answer and say it depends on the penalty kill. Can those guys do a good enough job on the penalty kill? Because I think 5-on-5, they'll still put up enough offense. The power play is going to be the power play. It's going to put up a bunch of offense. So the big question will be, does that defensive core, can the guys stepping in to take over what largely was on the PK standpoint, Vinny Desharnais and Cody Ceci, did a lot on the penalty kill on that right side. And now you're having to have those other guys step in. And can Stetcher and Emberson give you enough on that penalty kill to get you through? And I think they can. But you're a much better team if you bring in another top 4. I hope they do it sooner rather than later. I hate to harp on this, but I go back to, I would have been looking to trade Kulak instead of Ceci, just because it just gives you more options to the right side. You can still make another move later if you need to. But you have a massive hole there. And is it good enough to be in the playoff mix and to maybe sit on top of the division and to be right there? Yeah, probably. But it certainly doesn't make me feel comfortable.
I think you got to see what you have first. Like on paper, yeah, I think they would definitely be looking to add something. But we don't know. Will Emberson turn out to be a solid replacement for Ceci? And I think that's what they're kind of looking for. So those are bigger shoes to fill than people think they are, I think. I like Kulak. I always have. I think he, at the most important times of the year, he plays above his pay grade. But this is, I remember back when the whole discussion of getting Matthias Ekholm into the system, Ken Holland was having these discussions, I think, from the start of training camp with David Pohl in Nashville about this. This is when you kind of cultivate those deals. I think Bowman and has to go out and start getting these relationships, looking at having a short list of defensemen, of really good defensemen on teams that maybe you predict they might be on the outside looking in come playoff time. Start building that relationship now. And when the time comes to pull that trigger, it can be done hopefully, like I think from what Cass said just a little bit earlier, because you want that you want to figure out where they slot in and get that chemistry down with a proper D partner.
Are you guys ready to have discussions like week in and week out from now until February about the right-handed options that are going to be in the trade market?
Yep. They need to happen. I mean, well, I guess not with us necessarily, but the management needs to have them happen. They need to have those discussions. They're going to be having them weekly. So yeah, why shouldn't we until something happens? I just still hope that they're a lot closer to getting something done than further apart.
What is that to you?
Away.
In getting closer, like, is that you're saying you wanted something hopefully before Christmas? Is that in January? Like, what to you?
I wanted
what's
something
sooner?
done before the season, but that's probably not going to happen at this point. I would love that, but I think if something was going to be an immediate thing, it would have happened pretty shortly after. Like, it would have been in the hopper, ready to go. Which is still just what shocks me about the whole situation is you didn't have that, and you're saying Emberson and Stetcher are going to get us through. So I guess if I had to set a longer, sooner rather than later timeline, it's by Christmas. But I don't know. I try to think through. I try to think through trade options, and I just don't know.
Well, here's the list, and this is where it gets like difficult looking at who to go get at the deadline for this one, and it's going to come down to it's likely going to have to be an Ekholm type deal where no one was expecting it. Where no one was thinking that player was available, and somehow, Ken Holland finds Ekholm. Sam Bowman's going to have to somehow find that defenseman that we're going, oh, how did you get him? Because you look at the UFA defenseman, let's say, for next summer. So those rental type players who's going out. I'll go through just a list of a few of these guys, but we also have to remember that some of these players, they'll be playing on playoff teams, and those teams aren't training those guys. So you got Brent Burns with Carolina, you got Aaron Ekblad with Florida, you got Jeff Petrie with Detroit, Neil Pionk with Winnipeg, Adam Larson with Seattle is maybe one that if you could get him to waive, maybe you can get him. And I'm looking at right-handed defensemen here. David Savard with the Montreal Canadiens, Cody Ceci with the San Jose Sharks. There's also like Ran Ruda, Dante Fabro with the Preds, Travis Hamonic with Ottawa. I'm trying to find other players, like teams that are out of it. That I'm pretty low now on that list here. Most of those teams
could be pushing for it.
Exactly. But that's also why it's going to be difficult to make a move, I would say, before Christmas, is that every team is still going to be almost in a playoff race at that point. So it's going to be difficult to get that defense to want to. Did you just say Ceci?
No, I just figured it out. It's a trade straight across with a second and third next year for Darnell Nurse, Seth Jones. That's it, right?
But bringing in Seth Jones? And getting rid of Darnell Nurse?
Straight across.
You're trolling.
So now who replaces the left side?
Well, at least you have Kulak. Like on that, could play in that pairing. Yeah.
Well, is part of this a little difficult that we have to talk about who could play well with Darnell Nurse, and the fact that we're not saying that Darnell Nurse is going to elevate this other player?
Yep.
Yeah.
So how big of a season is this for Darnell Nurse? And I know that's it feels like such a rhetorical question here. Because I just don't know how anyone could have faith right now in Darnell Nurse, like not being a $9.25 million defenseman, but being a true top 3 defenseman.
Yeah. Well, playing as if he's a $7 million defenseman. That's what you need. That's what you need. And he's got to do it. He had little stretches last year where he didn't do it in the playoffs, which is when he really needed him to. So it's massive. I mean, it is rhetorical, but it's like, it's huge. The team really needs Darnell Nurse to have a good season. More than that, to have a great playoffs. He's the linchpin if we're looking at players that need to have a good year for the Edmonton Oilers, he is at the tippy top of the list.
Especially with the guys that left, right? He needs to raise his game to a level and keep it consistent throughout. And most nights he has to be noticeable with good plays, not the twerking saves trying to make. We want to be talking about the great plays that Darnell Nurse has made, and whoever he's playing with, that he's making them better. That's what you need. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks now, Cass. Just the fact that, we're worried about who's going to calm down Darnell Nurse, who's going to, solidify Darnell. It's such backwards dialogue that we're even contemplating this. But I've said this before, there are certain years that you just don't have a good year. Things don't click. Maybe you're gripping the stick too tight, trying to do too much. We've always said that when Darnell Nurse is at his best, sometimes you don't notice him that much because he's keeping his game simple. I think he's really good at that, but that should just be the standard bar of what he should be at. There should be more that he is able to contribute to this team on a nightly basis.
This is Two Guys and a Goalies, Two Matts and a Goalie edition here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Looking around the National Hockey League, this has been just a busy NHL summer. We're still not even at the 2-month anniversary of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and there's been a lot that has happened over the course of these last 2 months. But the Jets and the Penguins, they swap a pair of highly touted prospects. The Jets trading forward Rutger McGroaty to the Penguins in exchange for Brayden Yager. McGroaty was 14th overall in 2022. Yager was drafted 14th overall in 2023. I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts on this trade? I know Winnipeg Sports Talk and Huss is on right now, and it's a huge conversation over there as we speak right now. But what do you guys make of this 1-for-1 trade between two, as I mentioned, highly touted prospects between the Pens and the Jets?
Yeah, well, I think this is a classic case of you had an American that didn't want to play in Canada. I think at the root of it, that's where this came from. Now, pretty interesting, that ends up being Pittsburgh and ends up being Brayden Yager, who really was the top prospect in that organization. Now, McGroaty ends up being now their top prospect, but for Dubas, who, in my opinion, it looked like he was pretty, I'll call it aggressive with waiting to sign Yager and letting that drag on a little bit for a kid that can now transition and play pro in the AHL, even if he's not playing in the NHL. I mean, they waited to sign him. They waited. And now they move on from him. So it's like you turn the screws to him and then you move on from him. It's a little bit of a interesting situation where Dubas seems to show, I think, again and again here, especially with young players, where he's pretty aggressive in how he handles them. So on that end, I think for Yager, probably in some ways, maybe a better organization, but in other ways, Pittsburgh was absolutely starved for young offensive players to come into an aging team and to contribute. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Now maybe Dubas looks at this and says, McGroaty is a little bit older, just by a year, maybe a little bit more NHL ready than Yager, maybe can step in right now as opposed to having to wait another year and playing a year in the minors. So it's an interesting one to me for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, it's some high-end talent that comes back in, a guy that's probably going to be happy to play there. He's a Saskatchewan kid. A Canadian kid that you hope can be with the organization a long time and should be a pretty good fit there. Again, I don't know. I'll have to take a look at all the other Winnipeg prospects, but he definitely jumps right to the top of the list as far as guys that could be ready to step in soon and players that can play a high level, high skill offensive game.
Cass laid it out. It would be irresponsible of me to comment on either of these two players, as I have absolutely zero knowledge of both of them.
I'm more with you, Gage, on that. It's just I know that there's that American story to all of this.
That's interesting.
And it does come to a point, though, that Canadian teams, I think we're at a situation where they have to be a little careful. Now, Huss was mentioning there's a lot of Americans that they have re-signed over the years and that they've had around their team. And there is Austin Matthews in Toronto that did extend, and we'll see what happens there. But it's hard to keep, bring Americans up to Canada. Is there a situation we're looking at where Canadian teams will have to just slowly start passing on Americans because long-term they know that it's going to be maybe, 50-50 that player is going to want to go back to the States as opposed to sticking around their organization?
Well, it's harder because Winnipeg doesn't have an airport, so how can they even get them there? Yeah. Hey, it's a real concern. And there's a real concern from a tax standpoint as well for players long-term, signing long-term deals in Canada. I mean, that's just a reality of what you deal with. It is a higher tax jurisdiction, which means your contracts are less valuable when you sign them. So you have a multiple things with that and on that, and you're going through the process of having to move to Canada. It's I think there is a risk inherent to that. I don't know how you necessarily address it as a team, because it's like, well, if you really like the player and he's a really good player, particularly from a draft standpoint, you don't want to not take a guy because you have to sit and worry about, well, he's American. He might not want to stay here long term, or we might have to work harder to sign him or pay him more. Create some complexity to that. So I think puts teams in a tough situation, but you still want to, draft the best players and the best players available. This is tricky. It's tricky.
Let's talk some F1. Let's switch to that. We've got a race this weekend. Gager, you had Tim Hraney on the morning show earlier today. Why don't you tee up what we're getting? Because the summer break is now over. We're into the second half of this season, if you will. What are you watching for most this weekend?
I think just the Red Bull is what I'm kind of focusing on with Max. He's, I believe, won the last 3 times out here. And it's if you listened this morning, Tim Hraney, I asked him about the track and what cars kind of does this suit more for. A lot of fast corners. And look, it's essentially Max's home race. The Orange Army will be out in full force. And he's getting a little bit of heat from behind. So that's the thing I want to see most. How does Max react if he's pushed by McLaren again? I think there's something to this Mercedes car too. Tim was saying they've found something here that has really clicked. So hopefully we're watching all the lead changes at the front. We don't see Max just take off again. But that's what I'm kind of focusing on this weekend. I think it's going to be quite interesting just to see how those last few races ended, where obviously Max took the engine penalty, but was moving up through the field. But I just think by the end of the year we're going to have a really tight. Maybe I don't know about drivers' standings, but constructors. We're going to see it come down to the wire, I think.
Well, hire it or fire it, we'll get to in a bit. We'll focus a little bit on F1. Cass, how much have you missed F1 over these last few weeks? Or have you just been so busy you haven't had time?
I haven't had time. Like you said, expectations for this weekend in F1, and I'm like, I'm expecting to try to sleep. That's what I'm going to try to do. So I'll probably watch the highlights. That's going to be it for me on that. So I haven't. I haven't dug into it like Gage has the last couple of weeks. I've just been taking a nice break.
Well, but Sunday you could, if you do get up, at an ungodly hour, turn it on and then go right into the Elks game later on. Get a little. Go. So it's
making the playoffs, guys. They're making the playoffs.
Okay,
do it.
We'll talk some Elks. We'll get into that. But so, what is the race on Sunday? I've got it as 7 a.m.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I'll be.
For me, I'm not up at 7. I'm not up 7, but I also don't have kids, so this doesn't can't go into the next. This might not work for you guys, but there's nothing perfect than waking up on a Sunday morning. I don't have to wake up at 7. I wake up at like 8:30 or something. I just head to my couch, make a coffee first, head to my couch, put on the PVR, put on the F1 race, and just watch the race. And then it's just a great way to start a Sunday. And it's like the one sport I could watch on tape delay. I can't watch any other sport on tape delay. It just bothers me. I just want to know the results. But F1, I could just sit there, have the cars zooming around, and it's just a great way to start a Sunday. And when it starts so early, you don't have to. Like, there's no chance of getting spoiled because I'm just asleep. All I have to do is make sure I head to the couch and I've set it on a different channel, not TSN to start, and I'm not going to get it spoiled. And it's just it's a beautiful way to start a Sunday morning. And even throw in the qualifying on the Saturday. It's great. This isn't a sprint race or anything, is that?
Nope.
Okay, perfect.
We're back to standard 3 practices, qualifying, and then the race on Sunday.
I want to get to Hire It or Fire It, which is brought to you by GS Construction, who are hiring now. Be part of their great team by visiting GS Construction at .ca or their page on Indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. Okay, I'm going to start with their F1 Fantasy League. Gager sits 1. Cass sits 2 and 3. I sit 4. Gager 5. Hernan 6. Kent Morrison 7, Hernan 8, Lucas 9. I round out the top 10. Dusty's and his jailhouse team isn't even there. Hire It or Fire It. Joaquin Gage holds on for the Drivers' Championship in our F1 league. Cass, I'll start with you as you're the guy that's just behind.
I got to fire it. I mean, even firing it. I'm going to pass him.
Have you used any chips?
Nope.
Gager, have you?
1, I did. It was more of an experiment. It worked out okay for me, but I think, look, the chips become way more valuable now, right? Because you don't really know what's going to happen. I think you might get into a few instances where there's a couple of DNFs, and you got to watch for there's going to be power unit changes, grid placement drops to start a race. So the design of your team is going to be crucial in the second half of the season. I think the reason why Hernan started that show and he wanted me there is just to get more tips on his F1 team, because this is the best he's ever done.
Oh, it's Alpha Tor. It's the second team of Gager. That's all that is. It's you're that side team that they have.
He's my Cash App.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what he is to you, and it's going to keep going there. Gager, do you hire it or fire it that you're going to be able to hold on to the top spot? Because you've used the chip. Cass hasn't used any. He's got a little bit of an edge right there. Hire it or fire it. You're going to hold on for the top spots in the Drivers' Championship of our F1 Fantasy League.
I'm going to hire it because I think with the 3 girls that Cass has, I will probably be coming out there and giving them full Snickers bars at certain points, especially on, the Thursday, Friday, maybe even the Wednesday. So his attention is going to have to be on these fueled by candy and sugar-driven children that there's going to be no time for him and he's just going to forget about it. So
you know what? That's actually happened the last 2 races where I went and I looked early, really right after the last race. And I started thinking through how maybe some directions, some changes, some swaps that I could look at doing. And I think it happened twice where I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I'll just do it later in the week. No, didn't happen. Where I was like, I want to chew on this and think about this and maybe read some stuff and or wait till practice and then make my last minute moves. No, didn't happen. So, Gager, you have a sound strategy. I'm going to have to. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's a pretty tough one to deal with.
This weekend, Max Verstappen's going to hit the 200 race milestone, becoming the youngest F1 driver to do it. No one has ever hit 400, although Fernando Alonso, he's racing his 395th this weekend, so he's going to close in on 400. He will get there at some point in this F1 season. Although Max Verstappen, it's come out, there's an article that he says he's closer to the end of his F1 career than the start, and he made it clear he's not going to stick around for number 400. Hire it or fire it. Max Verstappen doesn't get. Oh, there we go. Great. We lost you guys. We lost our internet for a second there.
No
so
worries.
Hopefully we didn't lose the YouTube here, the YouTube channel. That's because the YouTube is down because there's no audio there, Zach. So it should be back right there. We're back on YouTube, I think. We're still live. Yes, okay. We're still live. I think I have a way of when our internet goes down to save the video so it doesn't go away. So we're back here. So Gage, we'll reset this up for everyone. Apologies for that. We had a little bit of an internet issue here at EST Controls. Hire it or fire it. Max Verstappen doesn't get to 400 career races. Hiring it means he doesn't. Fire it means he gets there.
Fire it. This guy, the minute he steps out of a race car, he's into the simulator and driving. This is all he knows. There might be a sabbatical for a year, but it'll be more like Alonso. He'll come back and race into his 40s, just like Fernando did.
Yeah, I'm gonna fire it. He said he wasn't gonna do it. Seems like a guy that when he makes up his mind about something, that's what it is. So, hire it. Yeah, whatever.
Yes,
I'll hire it.
Okay. I'm with Gage. He just seems too competitive.
Yeah.
He's just too into it and the fact that he got to 200 at such a young age, he won't have to be in his 40s to get to this. Like, is this guy going to walk away at, 32, 33? I just don't see that. He's talked about the idea that he doesn't want to do this forever. And so it's like, I just feel like he's just, to be you guys playing in the NHL, to be an F1 driver, any top level athlete, you have to be some of the most competitive people on the planet. And so I just don't know how for him, he's just going to walk away when he's still possibly likely going to be at the top of the game. Like I don't see him all of a sudden just dropping off and being middle of the pack lower. So he just seems too competitive to want to just I think with Gage, like he'll walk away for a little bit, but he'll just want to come back.
But see, here's the thing is Max Verstappen wants to win and he wants to be on the podium and he wants to win constructors. And if he's at a point in his career where he's not, and he's not racing on the best team and he's down in the standings, like do you think he has that same competitive personality that wants to be a middle of the pack finisher every weekend? Or does he want to go out on top? And that to me, like from a competition side, that's where I kind of go, okay, he says he doesn't want to do it because he knows if he's doing that, he's finishing middle of the pack, right? Like you're going to be the veteran driver that's not on top of the podium every single weekend. And I just don't think his pride will allow him to do that.
The counter to that is we'll find out with Lewis next season. Lewis was top for quite a few years. Last couple of years, Mercedes wasn't there. But if he goes to Ferrari and he's back on the podium, you could be doing this for a long time and still be at the top possibly. You don't have to be in a middle team. You could still be at a top team. And if you're any top team, I think you're going to want Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Unless you just don't want to deal with the drama with Max.
I don't think he's going to Haas at any time soon, right?
Hire it or fire it. I'm not going to do the drivers. I will look at constructors. McLaren catches Red Bull for the Constructors' Championship this season.
Hire it.
Fire it.
Who wants to explain their answer first?
Red Bull still wins it. They made up ground. They'll make up maybe some more, but they're not gonna pass them.
408, 366, 345. Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari right now in the standings. 1, 2, 3. Gager.
I just think Checo can't. He's not going to be able to figure this thing out. He hasn't over the last little bit. Although last race I believe was a little bit better, but somehow for some reason this car doesn't suit him well. And Oscar and Lando are the best team right now in F1.
Checo hasn't had a top 3 since the 5th race of the season. Including Miami, he's gone 4th, 8th, retired, 8th, 7th, 17th, 7th, 7th.
Yeah. It gets to the point where in most races, he's just going out on a different set of tires so they can get some information to know when's the proper time for Max to pit. Like it's ridiculous. He's got to figure something out. But I don't think he will. It's McLaren Drivers' Championship or Constructors.
This text comes in the Paris Jewelers inbox saying, I wish TSN would stop playing commercials during the race. Apparently in the U.S., they just show the whole thing. When they play, ABC will carry the coverage when the races come to the States and Canada, and I think they do the Mexico race. And I always watch the ABC feed because they don't do commercials. They get the race from start to finish without that cutaway. And TSN just has, and I know it's on like some sort of like automated way of doing it, but there's just always, it seems that when they do go to that commercial cut, something happens. There's a crash, there's a retirement. There's always something when TSN goes to the split screen and you got the race on the left side and the commercial going and you don't have the audio, you don't know what's going on and you lose your mind. It every week it feels like they have that magic.
It's an uncanny ability to do that every single time. That's why I got the F1 TV.
And finally, with Hire It or Fire It, Cass, you said the Elks are going to make the playoffs this season. Hire It or Fire It, they beat the Montreal Alouettes this Sunday.
Hire it. They keep the train rolling. Got to believe, fellas. You got to believe.
That's strong.
I'm with Cass. Hire it.
Wow, you guys all in. 4-game win streak going into Labor Day. Would that be something?
You know what? I have to. I can't let hope die. I have to.
I look at this game, and I'll be at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge where every day is game day. This Sunday, myself, Jay Milne, Green and Gold kickoff show, 4 o'clock right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Come on down, join us for the game. Surf and Turf is the daily special. It's a freebie game almost for the Elks, where, from an outsider looking in, obviously no team inside a locker room would look at it this way. But it's a full statement game where you go out, if you go beat Montreal, you've won 4 straight, you sent the message to the entire Canadian Football League that you are legit. You've turned your season around. But this is also the best team in the Canadian Football League you're going up against. They're getting their star quarterback in Cody Fajardo. You have to go out east, which is always difficult to do. That is, if you lose a close football game, you lose within 7 points. You still, I think, feel really good about yourself having won 3 of 4, and then you get the Labor Day series. And if you go take care of business against Calgary, you're sitting there, in that playoff, close to that playoff spot. You're looking at the playoffs and you're closing in on it. And I don't think a loss this weekend takes away the hope of this team. So that's why I just feel like this is almost just the free game for this team where, I think no matter what, we could walk away feeling still really good about this team for the rest of the season, especially leading up to that Labor Day rematch right now where, it looks like based on the way tickets are going, Gager, you might have a lot of extra dogs you're going to have to sling on that Saturday.
That's okay. I look forward to it, Matty. But I think that I'm with Cass on this one. It's a trap game for the Alouettes. Fajardo coming back, Mac coming back. They're going to think this one's in the bag. And I think, like I said, I think there's a little bit more of the Elks are it's rutting season, and the Elks are looking for love in all the wrong places.
It'd be something if they get to the playoffs. There's a scenario this weekend where they could be sitting 3 points back of first in the West.
Which is crazy.
Like, awesome. If they go out and win this weekend, they sit at 8 points, I believe they get up to. If the BC Lions lose to the Ottawa Red Blacks, if Saskatchewan loses tonight to Toronto, the Edmonton Elks will be 3 points back of the Saskatchewan Roughriders for first. And they would actually have the tiebreakers. They have the tiebreaker over BC. They would have the tiebreaker over Saskatchewan, although Saskatchewan has that 1 point because of the tie, so it changes with things. But there is a scenario tonight that the Edmonton Elks, I think they would officially be sitting 5th in the division, but would only be 3 points back of first place, 2 points back of second place. And what a wild swing that would have been for the Edmonton Elks. Before we wrap up, 2 guys and a goal, I just want to remind everyone, today is Burgers to Beat MS at A&W. $2 from every teen burger, double teen burger, and Beyond Meat teen burger purchased goes to MS. Edmonton over the 16 years or 15 years leading up to today have surpassed $2 million raised. We are one of the top regions for A&W in terms of dollars raised. They've raised over $20 million to date through the 15 years. Today, A&W is looking to raise over $2 million across the country. So what better way to support a great cause than to go eat a teen burger, and $2 will go to MS Canada. Gager, Cass, it was great being on 2 guys with you guys. Once again, Gager, you and I, we got the morning show tomorrow. Get ready. I've got a college football guest I think locked in. So we're talking week 0 in the NCAA. You ready to go?
Woo!
Can't wait. Cass, you want to come in and talk NCAA football? You probably know more than me. Jeez.
I just know Texas. That's all I know.
Okay. Yeah, you just got to say Bama. You got to say Georgia. How good are they? And you're, I think, pretty good to go.
You're okay.
where it goes. On behalf of Gage or Cass, I'm Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning in to Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction. Again, go get that A&W Team Burger today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Up next here on the audio stream, it is the replay of the morning show, and then Gager, myself, YouTube, Trev. We're back with live programming tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday chat tomorrow.